You know, one more time ought to get it. One last time ought to get it. Lido, one for the road. Well, hey, everybody, and good Thursday evening to you, or as our good buddy Tracy Lesh calls it, happy Friday Eve. I, of course, am the one and only Bill Sylvie, a.k.a. the Dungeon Delver, and I am pleased to see you this evening. So I hope everybody is having an absolutely wonderful time. It's Thursday, and I'm glad you're all here. Good audience out there already. Wheeling Dragon, Michael Dale, Matt keeps running out in the audience and then back in the green room. That's okay. We can do that. Leisha, hello. Vaughn Giffard. Who else is out there? Matt Sherman, if I didn't already say your name. SB, good to see you. But anyway, so we have a guest tonight, in case you haven't already guessed. You see what I did there? Anyway, yes, we do have a guest tonight. Matt Finch will be joining us shortly. We've had an awesome week so far. Tomorrow night, we are going to be playing some Gamma World. That's going to be a lot of fun. I know you guys like the Let's Play of Gamma World. And then Monday, we just start the whole process over again in a Mobius strip, by which I mean the mathematical phenomena, not the player, although he's awesome too. But anyhow, you know, the fun thing about this, just bourbon, Michael, and cheap bourbon at that. The fun thing about doing the show is unexpected things happen. And sometimes, occasionally, those are good unexpected things. And I was not expecting, I thought we would just have like a lazy Thursday. You guys would watch me get hammered until, you know, I don't know, midnight. I was crying about Gary or something like that. But no, we actually have a guest. We have an organized program happening tonight. Our guest has been on several times before. You've seen in the thumbnail, this is a man who is a cornerstone of the proper, real, well-considered old school Renaissance. This guy right here, folks, he holds it down on the swords and wizardry side because he is the man who created it himself. Everybody, please put your hands together for a really good friend of mine, and then take them apart when you realize I can't hear you applaud for the one, the only Matt Finch. Matt, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great. I'm actually taking notes on the questions that are out here in the chat room.
Yes, we have a good group of folks. Phaedrus Live just wants me to shut up. We need to know when we can buy these expansion books.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You know.
All right, I'm gonna click back out of the chat room and start paying attention to you now, Bill.
But anyway, so it's nice to be paid attention to, Matt. How have you been, man? It's been just a minute or two. How are things going?
They're doing great. I mean, yeah, you and I haven't really talked much in the last couple of months, I'd say. We did talk about, you know, the online convention that you do, mm-hmm. And I want to talk a little bit about, because you know, we'd like to sponsor that to some degree, and okay. So we'll talk about that. But let's put that off. You know, so that Phaedrus and the gang don't kill you because we haven't talked about the expansion set yet. So
I'm in an undisclosed bunker. They'll never get me. But yes, let's at the very least cater to their wishes. And I want to thank everybody, 40 of you out there live in the chat. And folks, I do just want to remind you this. This live stream is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Hellebarde makes the kind of adventures they like to play, whether it's for 5th edition or for the OSR. Old School is in play at the table with Hellebarde, and you can find them on DriveThruRPG or at their website, hellebardegames.com. But anyway, Matt, so much has been going on. So much has been going on, brother.
It has. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there. Most interestingly, Troll Lords and the Gary Gygax series, and we've got no, I'm not going to get it.
That's an over a whiskey thing,
right? I do. And because everyone knows, Bill was working with Gary on that stuff, and when the license got pulled, so it's a sensitive topic to even discuss that with him. But so there's that out there, and lots of cool stuff going on right now. So let me start by answering the couple of questions that were going on in the chat, because a couple of them are probably relevant. So SB asked about the shipping, whether you'll be able to add on more stuff, past products to the Kickstarter to help on shipping. The answer, I think, is we may do that with the core rule book. Susie wants to do that. I'm not sure about it. But the problem is that with shipping with Kickstarter, it gets really complicated, and it's usually a bad idea to try and mix pre-existing stuff with Kickstarter. So I'm going to say the answer to that is probably not, but I'm going to list you as a vote for try and do it anyway, because there are a lot of people having trouble with shipping. Shipping prices have gone through the roof over the course of the last 2 years, and we're very, very, aware of that, and that people need to do anything they can to save on shipping. Now, in the U.S., we ship media mail, so it tends to be fairly inexpensive relative to international shipping. But so the answer to that is probably not the way we have it planned right now, but I will list that as a vote to try and do it. And then we also had the question, I forgot who asked the question about what is core. And core Swords and Wizardry, that was actually the very first version of Swords and Wizardry that we put out there. And what it was was sort of the version of OD&D that I played at the time, and it's almost the 3 Little Brown books plus the Greyhawk supplement, the first of the supplements, because I do like having I come at things from a DM's angle, and I like having slightly wider numerical ranges for what you can do, and the differential hit dice on the character classes and so on. So it's got it's basically the 3 LBBs plus Greyhawk, only it's not a super faithful job as a retro clone to that group of books. I mean, it's still faithful as a retro clone, but it's faithful as a retro clone in terms of my choices using those books and what's in and what's out. So, but you can actually kind of view core as being a basic set for complete, because it has a limited number of classes, but it does give them all the way up the experience point chain. So it's not crippleware by any means. And so that's sort of how that's been used out there. So there I've done my duty and answered the questions that were in the chat room, while Bill still hadn't shown up in the green room, even though it was only about 2 minutes before the show started. And so let's go back to you, Bill.
Yeah, but anyway, gosh, what has been going on? By the way, I want to thank you. I want to take a second to publicly thank you. Thank you for connecting me with the folks over at Brave Halfling. We've actually had some folks from them over on the show. That is always a fun meetup with Risa and the gang from over there.
That's not Brave Halfling. That's Brave Alice.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Brave Alice. Brain short circuit there, but yeah, they're a lot of fun. So thanks for the connection there. But tell us about what you got going on. Let's just get it out there, because you hit me up like Monday evening. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna kick back, relax, not worry about Thursday.
It'll
Matt's
be a
like,
nice peaceful show. Not going to have any sort of troublemaker, talking directly with the chat room. Yeah.
So you ambushed me, as it were, but it's for good purpose. And let's talk about it. Drop a link back in the private chat, and I can show it to folks who aren't looking at the description, which you should be, because you should be clicking the like button.
I think probably everybody who is on this live stream has already signed up for the link, but let me go and get it here.
All right. Luther Pendragon says, Matt, just wanted you to know, I just introduced a new young 17-year-old to the Tome of Adventure design. You would have thought I had shown a primitive man fire.
Yeah, Kelsey Dion met me at GaryCon, and it was kind of like that. She was like, this book changed my life. And this was meeting Kelsey Dion before she was Kelsey Dion. This is before Shadow Dark had come out or anything like that. So it was
right.
That was really nice. And actually, and I should say, Kelsey and I are going to do a panel together at North Texas, at the North Texas Gaming Convention, which I think is on the third. I think we're doing it on the Thursday night. And we're going to talk about sort of, the very beginning of the OSR versus, where is it right now, and what are the changing things, and what is the changing, player base in the OSR, and so on. So if there are people who are going to North Texas, the gaming convention, that is, I think, will be a fun panel.
Well, I mean, just teleconference me in, because if you want to know where the OSR started, buddy, it's right here.
Oh yeah, no, the last thing I'm going to do is let you comment on, what I was doing back at the beginning of the OSR, which actually, I do, if we get to, if we ever do get past me actually, pimping the Kickstarter, and talk about things, the thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was simplicity in gaming, the differences between, because there, it's really coming down to 3 poles now in the OSR, really maybe 4. There's original D&D, there's which is probably mostly represented by Swords and Wizardry. There's basic, expert, which is probably again mostly represented by OSE, and then there's advanced D&D, and talking about the different simplicity levels and the buy-in by people on those different systems would I think be something that's interesting to talk about, especially since we're also going to be doing a Kickstarter for Osric later in the year.
Excellent. Did you hear that, EOTB?
Oh,
he was out there in the audience. He was like, okay,
he's way ahead of you on that. Yeah.
And I just want to let you know, Matt, as a cornerstone, as really, I don't want to overstate, the backbone of Osric, I stand ready to do the entries for Sphinxes and Snakes again for Osric. Don't worry, I've got you guys. So just lay that work on me, and I'll fit it into my busy schedule. That's the joke I tell people. It's like, when they say, wow, you worked on Osric. Yeah, I had kind of an important role. Like Stuart literally needed somebody to do was it spiders, snakes, and sphinxes.
Hey man, I got dragged into, I'd written the whole set of rules, and I still got dragged in to write the Ice Toad for the monster entries. So Ice toads are cool monsters in AD&D.
As it were.
I don't know if you've ever really read the description of the ice toads, but that's a neat monster.
I had an evil wizard summon ice toads as summoned monsters against the party, and all the shit that I could do with that guy to screw with the party, those ice toads ended up being the biggest threat. Like they were
they're badass.
Yeah. They were, it's like, yeah, okay, that guy's up there like wall of forcing our fighters away from us and casting charm person and making our cleric wander off and command and everything else. Guys, we got to do something about these ice toads now.
Hey, Weggy's here too. Hey, Weggy.
Yeah, he stops in from time to time. But no, all kidding aside, man, I know people are hyped for what you've got coming with the new Swords and Wizardry, and for the new Osric. That, in my opinion, here, and you guys out in the audience, you can agree or not. I think a new Osric, like a definitive new Osric release, is going to be freaking tectonic. I think that is going to change the shape of the landscape of at least our end of tabletop RPGs. What's your thought on it?
Well, I mean, this coming from there's different objectives with the whole thing. You know, one of mine is that I'm all about bringing in the younger generation of gamers to play OSR, and you know, as you probably know, and probably a lot of people know, you know, my view of what defines the OSR is very, very broad. I think it's mainly just the improvisational. You know, you have rules for some stuff, but there's a lot of improvisational rules as well. So, you know, I'm not like it has to be, you know, D&D. You know, I think Traveler is equally, you know, OSR. I think, you know, that new games that are being designed, you know, like Knave and Shadowdark, yeah, sure, they're OSR because they're being designed with that improvisational element to the rules. So that's right. Probably one of the broadest definitions out there. So, you know, I'm very, very focused on bringing younger gamers in to see that that is an option, because when you start playing an RPG, you are almost guaranteed to be playing one that's of the more modern school. If we've tried to give you a rule for everything so that you can look it up and know how to do it, so that you don't feel lost when you're playing, you know, which and that probably is better for you know, your first introduction to doing it, as long as you also get the introduction of, now here is something where as a DM and probably as a player as well, you can be a lot freer form with how you're interacting, you know, with whatever fantasy world it might be, whether it's Gamma World or whether it's, you know, science fiction or what have you. That, you know, it's that format of the way that the game is played. So that's and that's also, and that dovetails into the question about the objectives behind Osric, because my biggest one is making it accessible to the, you know, the younger generation of gamers, and like either you or somebody said in the chat, I think we are getting quite an influx of younger gamers after the whole OGL thing went down. There are, again, more younger gamers who are looking at other options beside 5th edition D&D. And so I want to, you know, that's the group that I really want to get this in front of. And so and that, you know, implicates some things, you know, just about, you know, layout, language, you know, making it the sort of game that when they're reading it, they don't stumble across something and say, what the hell is going on here? And Stuart also is looking at another angle on it. He wants to make sure that it's VTT friendly, because, you know, there are a lot of people now who are playing with VTTs. And again, you know, I assume that a lot of the younger generation of gamers who are coming into it are using VTTs because they're already, you know, hooked up by Discord and so on and so forth. So their first gaming experience might not even be at a tabletop. So, you know, Stuart's trying to work in the VTT stuff, and so that's the real objective to Osric. You know, we're not trying to make any you know, changes to the rules. I think some of the presentation where we were very, very legally cautious, there are some things I think that we can be a little bit less cautious. So, like, you know, in the monsters, I think we'll probably do an alphabetical list of monsters rather than monsters by type, just so that it's more familiar to people. That was something that we did in order to avoid having the same table of contents as AD&D, which could have been a copyright violation just because of those words there, even though they still, you know. So anyway, so I babbled a long answer to your question. You want to go ahead and redirect me? Steeple's fingers, yeah.
No, that's okay. Yeah, EOTB is, like someone mentioned, virtual tabletop, Steeple's fingers. Yeah, I'm one of those grognards who does not think of ETT as is terrible. I know there's way too many I've encountered who are like, that's practically a video game. Yeah, and I'm like, dude, Tim Cass got hired at TSR playing D&D over the phone with Gary, that was the virtual tabletop.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't come at me.
We just got better technology now to do what people have been doing.
It has been the computers in D&D have been a thing all the way along. There are type-in computer programs in early issues of the Dragon. There are. So yeah, virtual tools have always been helpful. But anyway, to get back to a little bit to what you were saying. No, see, I am very much of the same mindset that, you take something like original D&D, and I held up the books earlier. And if you guys haven't seen original D&D, if there's anyone in the audience who's never actually physically seen me show these off, and it's not just to say, oh, look at what a badass I am. Yeah, these are your rules. This is less than half an inch, and it is the totality of what you need to play a full tabletop role-playing game campaign. There are about 1 billion miles in this book for you to explore, or in these books.
Something new every time you go into them as well.
Yeah, and it's the same with AD&D. There, and you mentioned learning by fewer options. I mean, when a pilot goes in to the Air Force Academy, they don't drag you over to an F-35 and sit you down and try and explain every subsystem. They start you out in a propeller-driven airplane with like 12 dials in front of you, and an instructor in back telling you what to do. You learn the fundaments of how it goes. And I cannot tell you, Matt, how many times I have run AD&D, OD&D, and yes, Swords and Wizardry and Osric. Jeremy Rule, thank you for joining. Thank you so much. But how many times people have sat down, played through either the original games or an OSR game, and then come back to me and said, that was so awesome. I didn't have to worry about what was on my sheet or looking up a bunch of rules. I just told you what I wanted to do, and I could do it. Mm-hmm. And once you get people over it, and this is what Osric and Swords and Wizardry are so good for. I mean, even if you're like me and you want people to play OD&D and AD&D, they're so good for breaking that mindset, or better still, not letting that mindset take root. Right. Exactly. I have to have a rule for everything. And oh, my character can't tie his boots. He didn't take boots tying feet, and it's like I discussed with Gary once upon a time. Dungeons and Dragons is an avatar-based game. It is assumed that if you're going to go stick your head in a treasure-lined hole in the ground for a living, you know how to catch a rabbit and skin it and cook it and eat it. You know how to swim. You know how to climb a tree. You know how to keep your sword sharp, mend your clothes, on and on and on and on down the line.
You don't need the whole list of the stuff.
You don't. And I mean, in times when I've run Swords and Wizardry or OD&D, I've had people say like, oh, wow, man, are you doing another game? No, but you can sit down right now and play. Oh, I don't even have a character. Note card, pencil, 3d6, strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma. You have a sword, a shield, chainmail. You are armor class 6. You're a fighting man. Roll 2 dice. That's how many hit points you got. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And people have
armor class 4.
Armor class 4 is a sword, or a shield and chainmail. Are you sure?
Yes.
I'm gonna look.
Okay, yeah, let's look.
I'm gonna look.
Meanwhile, hi to Will Mistretta, who I noticed you in the chat. Will did some really, really useful help for us with the complete rule book by taking a look through it at the point when my eyes were glazing over with checking, and we got a lot of very wonderful commentary and errata from him. So, Will, thank you very much. I'll do a shout out since I saw you in the chat.
Yeah, Will's a great guy. I've known Will in an internet way for it's been a minute or two, and it was funny because the old forums and boards we used to use shut down, and then we sort of ran into each other again on Facebook, and I had no idea that dude was such a such a huge tabletop RPG guy.
And we won't go at all into Weggy and Eye of the Beholder and some of the other miscreants that are roaming around on the chat right now.
Right. So I'm still looking, but I do want
armor class 4.
It's you're sure it's armor class 4?
Chainmail and shield.
Chainmail and shield.
Chainmail and shield. Armor class 4. Oh, hold on. I'm off target here with my camera.
Oh, all right. It's armor class 4.
Yeah. Page 19. All right.
Now that that's settled.
Yeah.
I have old person brain.
And I've been looking at these rules over and over and over and over and over again for.
Yeah. By the way, this message is a coded message. This is specifically for Will Mistretta. That's enjoy, Will, just in case you didn't know. He knows. He knows.
All right, so let me take my moment that I always remind people that I'm not paying Bill for this live stream. So if anybody wants to pay him a little bit of cash, throw a little bit of cash in the thing, it's there on the Chiron down there.
Thank you very much. But what the hell do you mean you're not paying me for this, Matt?
No, I'm sponsoring your convention, but I'm not paying you for this, video. Because
folks, it's been a wonderful evening, Matt. Thank you for stopping.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, so what's going to be in the Kickstarter? We got.
Let's talk about that.
All right, so we've got 2 hardcover books, both of which will be Smythe sewn, which is the type of binding where they're sewn in signature. So it's the very, very high quality hardcover rather than just jammed into the glue. 2 hardcovers. One of them is the Book of Options, and that has a bunch of stuff in it. The other one is a monster book, and hopefully a lot of people will buy the monster book because it does have like 40 completely new monsters in it and some great art. I said I would mention the artists, and predominantly the artists in that book are Brett Barkley, Del Tigler. This is in no particular order. It's when they come up. They had Ken and James, Brett, Del, Ken and Chris Arneson, and J.E. Shields are the ones who put in the most of the art. Although I think there is a speckling of others, and I might possibly be forgetting one of the major artists. But that's the thing. So in the monster book, 40 new monsters, lots of new art, and then all of the rest of the monsters, because there's about 300 of them. The rest of those have appeared before in monstrosities, and it does not have the little scenarios that monstrosities does. But what this book is if you're keeping in mind that we're basically sort of restarting the Swords and Wizardry product line from the standpoint of a new company after having left Frog God, what this is it is a much more affordable monster book, and it's thinner, so it's easier to carry. But there is some crossover. There are a lot of monsters that have appeared before. There are 40 new ones. I think people will really like the new ones. So that's with that. So that's a kind of a hybrid product. Hopefully, hopefully the sell will be enough for people to buy into getting the monster book. I think it's worth it for the art alone. So those are the 2 hardcovers. And then there's also going to be an adventure to Tomb of the Iron God. We're remastering and doing a nice looking version. All of the previous versions of that were one that I did the layout on. Now Susie's going to do the layout. We've got nice art, so that module will be out there, and that'll obviously be a saddle stitched soft cover.
Wow.
And then there'll also be a saddle stitched soft cover for a book called The Domain of Herringard, which is sort of the intro to a campaign world. Although it's a fairly small area, it's kind of Judges Guild style hex crawl type of thing. but it also, and that's where the Tomb of the Iron God is located, and also there's a segment of a mega dungeon in there, but that gives me the room to then do the city that's there, which is the city of Herringard, and the mega dungeon as separate things that have enough treatment of them to handle a book on their own. But we'll also keep coming out with these smaller campaign area supplements, a lot like the way the Judges Guild did. They take an area and do a short book on it. So there's the full sweep of the thing. What is in the book of options, there are, I think, 11 character classes. We're adding gnomes for the first time in Swords and Wizardry now that we're no longer in the official Retroclone territory, where I could say where I would sort of be forced to say, like Gary did, gnomes are just like dwarves, only they're smaller. Now that we're no longer in the official Retroclone territory, I can do a little more interesting gnome. We've got in that book, that's actually where the encounter tables bringing in the monsters are located. So that's in the book of options. A bunch of magic items, not a huge number of magic items. Not a huge number of new spells for existing characters, although there's tons and tons of spells because of the new character classes. Many of the new character classes, the mechanics were designed by James Spawn, although I wrote the Demon Hunter character class from scratch. So that, I think, gives the overall description of what's in there. Oh, and there's I did a revised version of the Quick Primer for Old School Gaming. The original version of that was comparing to 3rd edition. I think the comparison is a little bit different to 5th edition. I also backed off a little bit on the whole comparison, this versus this, to focus a little bit more on what is the method of old school. It's improvisational. So I used that to sort of clarify the rulings versus rules thing. Because have you noticed, you may have, I mean, a lot of people are going and asking, were you guys really playing the way that you're describing that you played? And the answer is, of course, no. We're trying now to describe the way that we were playing back then. We did certainly play in that way, but it wasn't with little keywords like rulings instead of rules in our heads, because there was just only one version of the game. So anyway, all right, talked for a long time. Bill, over to you.
Over to me. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions, and I think this is probably this is like a top heap question here, so I'm going to throw this one out there. Vaughn asks, is there a complete collection bundle coming with this?
No, that's kind of the same question that SB was asking before about
okay,
about whether we package it. Now what that question suggests, so the complete bundle, that might be something that we could do more easily by just saying, here's a bundle. Well, there we would know exactly what the shipping was. The difficulty with Kickstarter is when you give people choices of this versus that in the shipping on a sort of an a la carte type of menu, because it can make it very difficult to calculate the shipping. Part of the reason being that anytime you send something, the first thing that goes in the box is very, very expensive. The second thing that goes in the box is not, and it can be difficult to keep track of how all of that works. But doing one package bundle, that would be something that would be a lot easier to do than what SB was asking, which was, can you add on just this, that, or the other thing? So that we'll think about that.
Okay. All right. There you go, Vaughn. So my question for you, Matt, is do you guys need a witch class for this? Because I did a pretty good witch class. I know y'all have gone to print already. It's all good, man.
Yeah, that we're already done with the layout, Bill. We're pretty much done with the layout.
Just cram it in there somewhere, man.
Well, we were doing that with the Swords and Wizardry complete rules, because we had a lot of people asking for can we have some morale rules? Can we have the random castles? And we really did. We like contacted the printer and we were like, how many pages have we got left at the end of that signature? And we really did cram some stuff into the complete rule book, but it was
Will, wasn't it? You can say it. It's fine. It was Will who was doing that to you, wasn't
it? Was Will and others. A lot of people focus on morale rules, which we really didn't back in the day, but apparently a lot of people do use morale as a way of being fair, about whether the monsters are going to retreat. I'm going to just leave it to a die roll.
right?
I didn't happen to play that way, so my personal feeling on morale rules was that it wasn't all that terribly important. But there are a lot of people to whom that is a relative. There is something missing if they're not in there. So we got those in, and that's one of the things that makes the monster book useful too. Is that the old monstrosities, it was before the morale rules went into Swords and Wizardry, so there's not a morale number in there. And so now, in the Fiends and Foes book, which is what we're calling it, it also has the morale. It also has the updated experience point values, because we increased the experience points for things that were over challenge level 8, I think. So all of that stuff is, so it's it works with all the other books.
Okay, so morale is a fixed slot like Holmes. Gotcha.
Morale, I don't think Swords and Wizardry didn't have morale in it at all until this last complete revised version.
Right. So that's
you don't even get me started on Gary's morale sim, because that's from Chainmail, and it is not uncomplicated like a lot of Gary's war games.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it. Well, let me clarify that. I didn't think Gary's morale rules were that complex in AD&D.
No, in AD&D,
they're actually less onerous in AD&D than they were in Chainmail. I found.
100% agree with you there.
There's a question, and I think that all directors, all creators of landmark things face this crisis at one point or the other. Now, I mean, with rare exception, I've never had to worry about my stuff going under the red pen. But what was the cruelest thing that you felt like, God, I want to leave that in, but no, it's got to go. It's got to go. Whether it was Swords and Wizardry, like back in the day, revised, where you are now, what was one thing that you were just like, that hurts my heart, but it's got to go?
Saving throws. I know I'm getting feedback here. Okay. No, saving throws was, people really like the single saving throw system that Swords and Wizardry has, and I use it and love it now. But the problem with saving throws is that although game mechanics cannot be copyrighted, formats of information, even uncopyrightable information, can be copyrighted. And so the concern was that if you did a table that simply mimicked the existing tabular multi-type saving throw, that would be a copyright violation. And so that was probably the most difficult thing. It turned out really well, because people thought I was really bright coming up with this single saving throw, but that was accidental. That was actually for legal reasons, and I just happened to land on a solution that people ended up being very fond of.
Yeah. I can see where that would hurt me too. I mean, if I had to design around that, and I get it. I guess I've always been lucky in that I've had great editors, you included, actually, in that, who've gone through stuff I've seen. So I've never had to see which children get pushed off the boat.
Right.
Until I get the print copy, and it's always been pretty delicate. But I mean, when you're talking about something where you are, you're literally building a framework, right? Like, the comparison in music might be, I might come in and lay down a few tracks. You built the damn studio and opened a record label.
Well, no, I didn't really. I mean, because I always tell people, I'm not a good, I don't consider myself a game designer. I think I'm pretty good at writing adventures, but it's not like I just did the design work, on either Osric or Swords and Wizardry. That was all Gary. What I was trying to do was to, as accurately as I could, put that into a modern thing where third-party publishers could publish resources for it. Nowadays people really don't understand the legal situation that we were in when all of this stuff started out, because at that time only third edition Dungeons and Dragons was under the OGL. You could not publish something for AD&D, and the whole thing with the Retroclones of rewriting them was a way to allow people to do third-party adventures and things and keep the ball rolling on first edition D&D, on OD&D via Swords and Wizardry, because there were everybody wanted to share on the internet. Here's this really cool module that I did for AD&D, and people are all like, oh, it's a copyright violation. And so we were just trying to put that framework together. But the thing that I designed was actually not a gaming framework. It was a legal framework for publication.
Right.
That's right. The days of you have 30 days to go.
And I realize that, again, I don't want to, I kid about, well, it was me and then Matt and these other guys came along. I kid about that, guys. I very strongly kid. But, like I've had friends say, friends who have legal acumen tell me, like, because I would talk to them about, when the first Delver's Dungeon modules, when I would ape the TSR style and just go, you know what, these are set in Greyhawk, these are for AD&D rules, come at me, bro. Yeah. And I did, like, people who know and are actually not fiscally suicidal would come at me and say, okay, dude, you want to go play on the highway? Knock yourself out,
And that was the thing. I mean, there were places where people were sharing that kind of thing, and mainly Dragon's Foot,
mm-hmm.
a little bit Knights and Knaves, but Knights and Knaves really hadn't grown to the size at that point, so mainly Dragon's Foot, and people were putting that stuff up, and it was becoming a larger and a larger community and a larger and larger movement, and it was like you were talking about those, without the suicidal acumen. So I was looking at this and saying, you know what, we are currently headed for an iceberg at this point, because at some point Wizards is going to come and shut us down. The other thing I didn't understand, because actually that was the most permissive Wizards of the Coast that we've ever had, but we were all assuming that they were still operating based on their 1990s mode of sue everybody. That was actually a really permissive, fan supporting Wizards of the Coast that we had, around 2005, but we didn't know it. So, everyone was very concerned, and certainly given where we have got to now, we would certainly be hitting that iceberg at this point in time if it hadn't been for the Retroclones, showing a path to publication of the older materials.
And that's what brings us back to 2023, right? First week of January 2023, here, the Wizards of the Coast deconstruction team has showed up with pry bars and sledgehammers to our comfortable cottage where we're all living and creating, whether you're doing Retroclone stuff for even 4th edition, and they're like, it's got to go, and I was mentioning this on the show the other night. That was such a that was such, I think you'll understand where I'm coming from without getting hyper emotional about it. That was a revolutionary time, those months, because it was everybody. It was people who of and I know of that would not give you or me the time of day, all of us standing shoulder to shoulder and telling Wizards, get off our lawn.
Yep.
You guys wrote this document. You signed this document. We've abided by this document. Fuck off. And they did. And then, of course, we went back to squabbling and edition warring and trying to cancel each other. So,
because that's what one does.
Yeah. Yeah. We created this lovely united front and then just slagged down and we're right back at each other's throats. But your opinion here, you know how dangerous it was to even put the letters T, S, and R together on a piece of paper back in the 1990s.
Right.
Do you think now that we're past the watershed of the OGL attempt, do you think things are better or worse than they were in the 90s when TSR was literally trying to sue the internet?
I think they're probably better than the 90s. I think that we are not as well off as we were before Wizards of the Coast tried to cancel the OGL. And just in a nutshell, that the reason for that is that the defense of the OGL is based on something called the parole evidence rule, which is or reliance reliance estoppel, which basically says, look, if there's anything ambiguous about your contract and you said something in public to the person you were making the contract with, that may be viewed as a court. If there's an ambiguity, that may be viewed as a court as part of the agreement. And they put on their website an exact methodology that they would use for new editions. It wasn't what they actually did. So if they had tried to shut down the OGL at that point and gone through with it, they would have been sued based on this reliance theory of, you said that this was the way it was going to be done. It wasn't clear. But here's where we are now. Now they've added something to the history of what they've said in public, which is that they think that it is revocable. The fact that they never came back out and said, okay, guys, it's not revocable, means that potentially in the future, the OGL is at risk and it is on slightly different legal ground than it was before, when the only thing out there was them saying on their website that it couldn't be revoked. Well, now they've also got out there a history of saying that it can be revoked. So I think that the OGL is at a little bit more risk, and certainly not now, but at some point in the future, it may be. And so that's the reason that, we wrote the ELF license, which operates a lot like the OGL, only it's left revocable, and it allows mentioning other people's intellectual property with a less draconian approach than what the OGL did. So that's why we're using the ELF license. But I think we're definitely worse off right now than we were before Wizards tried to cancel the OGL, but I still think we're better off than we were in the 90s. I mean, at that point in time, they were going to crush anything that looked like an attempt at third-party publishing.
Yeah. I remember. I mean, my fellow IT nerds talk about Microsoft Extend, Embrace, Exterminate. Yeah, there's a little company in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin that they were already ahead of Microsoft on that with the whole. Well, I tell you what, you can put your stuff on the internet on our FTP server, and if you do that, it belongs to us. Zippity zoppity, your writings are now our property, is basically what they told people back in the 90s. So yeah, we're probably, I hope so. I had no kind of a legal brain at all. But I think we're probably past the worst depredations of the 90s, but there's always tomorrow, right?
Right.
I'm sure none of us thought on January 7th, 2023, that January 8th, 2023 was going to happen. So
that was wild.
Yeah. And hey, let me just state this publicly. Wizards, from the bottom of my heart, I can't thank you enough. I went from 1,400 subs in the space of a couple of months to like 4,000. Matt, I would sit down to do news videos because like multiple times a day, bad things would be leaked about what Wizards was doing. And I sat down to do a news video and I opened up, YouTube's creator page, and I'd look at the views. It was going like a drag racer.
Moving while you were watching, going up.
Yeah. I'm literally like trying to get my notes together and trying to put together the bottom text underneath the video. And I'm just watching it jump up 20 viewer or 20 subscriptions, 40 subscriptions, 45. So thank you, Wizards of the Coast. Please feel free to do something stupid again. Not that stupid, just controversial. How about, because they've still been doing plenty of that.
It's easy to say when you're in the streamer's seat, but when you're in the publisher's seat over here, that's not so fun.
Nah, fair enough. Will actually has a question of substance, so we're going to let the audience talk. And I do too, because it has been pestering. You know what? It's my show. You wait for a minute, Will. So I'm going to put this up here because I think probably a lot of people might be interested. Let me see. All right. Stop. I really like StreamYard. I've said this before. I really like StreamYard, but there's a lot of times when like the interface to get to the things you want in StreamYard are kind of a pain in the butt. So StreamYard, fix your UI. Otherwise, your product's great. So I am a big fan of zines. You can ask anybody in the audience. We have done deep dives on so many cool zines and everything. Matt, are we ever going to see a return of Knockspell?
I don't think so. The guys. The guys at Knock Magazine asked me, if they could call theirs Knock as opposed to Knockspell, and I was like, okay, well, I think we're pretty much done with Knockspell. So, yeah, absolutely, go ahead and take that torch and carry it. So, and I think they've done a really good job of it. Part of the thing is that it's a lot of work to put a magazine like that together, and it's actually more work than writing something yourself to sell as a product. And also, people expect zines to be less expensive than a gaming supplement. So, again, I think the answer to that is no, we're not going to see Knockspell come back.
Well, that is a shame. And somebody was asking, where was it? GM Grimlore says, is it available? Yes, it is. You can still get PDF copies of it though. Matt might not love you guys anymore, but I do. So here's the link. There is the link if you guys want to pick up Knockspell. It is absolutely worth it. And I've heard there's a pretty good author who's written a dungeon that's in one of those. But
the Cloud Giant's Castle. Yes, I know the gentleman you're speaking of.
He's kind of a twitchy dude, but I guess he's all right. But anyway, yes, you should absolutely, if you want a taste of that magic apple that I've talked about, guys. Something that maybe you haven't savored before you dive all in, or you're waiting on this awesome new Kickstarter that's coming, and you haven't availed yourself, get some copies of Knockspell in your hands.
What's interesting too about Knockspell is if you want to get a feel for what was really going on right at the start of not right at the start, but in the early days of the OSR, all of the advertisements and stuff are still in these magazines, and so you can read it back in time, and see what were people doing. And I was just like, hey, I'm going to put some ads in here. I'm not going to charge for them, but if anybody wants to put in an ad, send me something, and put it in, and there it is.
Yeah, and that that is something I love. I read old Dragon. I have plenty of physical copies of Dragon kicking around here, and of course I have the CD-ROM collection from '99. That's my favorite thing to read sometimes. Like just to look at those. Like, okay, here is like literally a 2-inch wide by 3/4 of an inch high ad for an RPG you never heard of. What happened to those guys? Are they still writing? Was it like, well, we printed up 100, nobody bought any, we're minus $100 in the hole because not counting the advertising, so let's call it quits. And I even and it's more than just one. When I look through the ads and I'll see small game companies like that were in Orlando, like in the Central Florida area, I'm like, wow, that was just right over there. And I love the ads. And yes, that goes for Knockspell as well, because they are a time capsule of what was going on in the hobby. So yeah, pick up Knockspell, guys. It's $4 an issue, and they're all really, really good. Now, what was an actual real grown-up question? Will Mistretta, Will, you could have asked him this yourself. You probably got him on speed dial, but I'll put it up here anyway. Random question about the rules option book. What, if anything, will be included other than the new classes?
Well, the most of it, well, actually, by page count, it may actually be the encounter tables, maybe the largest section of it. But I would say the new character classes probably are the majority of the content. There are a couple new spells for clerics. I did pre-calculated tables for several or possibly all of the multi-class options from the rule book to where you can see that in table format rather than having to calculate the half experience points, so on and so forth. There are magic items in there. Gnomes. Okay, so here, this is possibly the biggest piece of news in there, on this Kickstarter, is that gnomes are in there. I think I mentioned that before, but so gnomes are in there. So that's one new Ancestry in addition to the others. It's got the
Matt, say race here.
No, I use Ancestry, which we can talk about, but I use Ancestry.
Okay. You
broke my train of thought there. I was about
to. Gnomes.
What's the other? Yeah, there was gnomes. I don't know, but anyway, there's a scattering of other stuff in there. Oh yeah, there's the revised Quit Primer for Old School Gaming. That's probably the majority of it. I may be forgetting like some large section in there. Are there rumor tables?
No, they're rumor tables.
They're not rumor tables. The table books are different. That's a different product line. We're working on more table books. I say we're working on more table books. I have a title at the top of a document, and it is saved under the name of that title and very little else underneath there. But we are going to work on table books. Now is not the time to be, doing table books. There are some of those coming out. So I think that's a pretty good snapshot view. I mean, it's not another first edition Dungeon Master's Guide. It's a relatively small book. It's mostly focused on the classes. And one of the things I wanted to, because here's an interesting thing about Swords and Wizardry. You've got one group of players who really like the small set of options for character classes because they're very archetypal, and you can add anything that you want to one of those classes to make it into a thing that you can play. And on the other hand, you've got the Arduin gamers who like to have really the kitchen sink. If there's an option, let me have it. And so we're this book for those like Russell Cohn, whose big thing about OD&D is that it's a small scope. There's not a whole lot of interest in the player book, other than possibly the new spells and so on. But there's a very, very large group of people who want to just have more in there. But I think almost the first sentence in the book is, keep in mind everything in this book is optional. It is not something that you have to feel obligated to work into your game, because I think it would be a bad idea to simply take everything, because that's kind of like what happened to second edition, is that they just kept adding on more and more options. And even though the core of the game itself remained relatively simple, the number of options that were out there created its own layer of complexity. So there's always that pitfall out there. So
right on. Well, that is a that is a very thorough answer. Let's see. Who thinks that's useful? And let's see. want to make sure I'm not missing anything.
Potion missability tables are wonderful. I love potion missability.
Potion missability tables are absolutely fantastic, and every dungeon master should use them. Let's see. Ludlam Press says, I think this is relevant to what we were saying earlier. Glad to see this stuff coming out to expand the elf license. Having written a module under this license, new monsters and classes will be a boon. +1 to Matt.
Thank you. Yeah.
And as I was saying, folks, if you're just stopping by for the first time and you haven't been over here on this channel, please do click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications, and give this a thumbs up, because I do kind of this sort of stuff all the time. Chet Minton asks the question closest to my heart: any deity or demon stuff in there, Matthew?
There is not any deity stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
The demons we've got, we're using the demons. So there are, however, demon princes. All of that has been in monstrosities before, although I had Ken and James do the art for the demons, so it's some pretty cool imagery there on the demons. But it is the ones that you would have seen before in monstrosity on the demons. What we do have in this one that is new in terms of expanding, there's a lot of planar. A lot of the new stuff is planar type of gaming, and anybody who's ever gamed with me at any convention knows that, you know, I'm a big fan of planes and portals, you know, and you accidentally walked, you know, into, you know, a place you really didn't want to be in, another plane of existence, kind of thing. We do have angels in this one, so that we've got the other side covered now, the other team.
Right on.
Which is useful because one of the character classes is a warlock type, which those who are not familiar with 5th edition, the concept behind a warlock is it's somebody who has made a pact with an extraplanar creature that gives them their spellcasting power, which is a lot like the way that that a witch is described. So hence, warlock. So we've got angels out there, and a lot of other planar creatures too. I really like the Ulmarians, who are half. Sometimes they're affected by they're kind of half plant, half animal. They're not really in either one of those two kingdoms, but they and so sometimes they're affected by spells that affect plants, but sometimes they're not, and they ride flamingos that allow them to translate from one plane into another. So that's one of my favorites.
Right on. So I'm asking the hard questions tonight, or at least I hope I am. Have you, no pun intended, had a mind to do anything with psionics?
Not really. The official, so part of the biggest problem with psionics is legal. That any of the original psionic systems, they're very specific, and there's a lot of stuff in there that would be a copyright violation, and it's not something that they put into the OGL or the Creative Commons license, which is the source that allows us to use at least the terminology behind these things. And so there's a number one out of the box is a big legal difficulty in doing anything that maps directly onto the real OD&D psionics. And so that's the real killer. And then, I didn't tend to play with psionics, so it's kind of a thing like with the, because with white box, like I'm not a white box player. I played the core version, and then now I play, with all of the whole kitchen sink in there. And so I had, I worked with Marv Bragg to produce the white box version, because I wanted to get something that was, accurately what the people who really played white box used, and just any modernizations or anything, to get that from somebody who actually played that game. I wasn't really big on psionics. Like everybody, when the AD&D books came out, we tried psionics, and we all cheated up a character who actually had them, which is not nearly as easy as you would think to look at all of the psionic characters that were running around that year. So no, and the other thing is that because of that, I think that there somewhere out there are third-party publishers who would do a better job of a psionics system for swords and wizardry than I would, and I'm perfectly content to let the person who can do the better job do the job rather than grabbing it. So I think that's the way to go.
That makes sense. And I mean, you're right. Psionics are a very, very, very niche thing. And, Michael touches on something here, and this goes back to, I think, a lot of very brassy statements and not inaccurate. Again, I am not a law guy. Matt knows full well how compatible with lawyers and that sort of thing I tend to be, but
not.
But Michael says they don't own the idea whatsoever, and if that's in reference to psionics, no, they probably don't. Here's the thing. I could spend $800, find an attorney here in Central Florida, and send my neighbor a cease and desist letter. Stop driving your red car. It offends Mr. Sylvie. If you don't, we'll take legal action. Completely stupid, totally bogus. If it scares him into not driving his red car anymore, then I've won. It doesn't matter if I don't have any legal standing. If he takes me to court, of course, the judge is going to be like, get out of here, you weirdo, and then I'm in trouble. But it doesn't matter what ground, what fairness or righteousness you stand on. It's the legal firepower you can bring to bear to imply that you are in the right. And that is very true. It's like when people would say prior to TSR being bought by Wizards of the Coast, people would say, oh, well, I can put whatever, I can put out something that's D&D compatible. You can't stop me because this court case came out a few years ago with the Trivial Pursuit. Yes, you can absolutely do that. Do you have the pockets that TSR had to get attorneys to make you stop? Right or wrong, can you go to, Lake County, Wisconsin, and stay there for a few months and deal with a court battle now in Renton, Washington? No, you can't. I can't. Not many people I know at all can. So that is the dividing line, not whether or not it is actually theirs. Matt, if you want to smack me down for talking idiocy, please feel free.
No, I mean, you're right. And there are harder targets and softer targets, and in the worst the case is the stop driving a red car case, that could actually be addressed fairly cheaply, by a lawyer. But if it's more complicated, and a copyright question would be more complicated, then yeah, you are looking at costs that the average person wouldn't be able to field. And so that's the reason most people fold when they get that sort of lawsuit.
Yeah, and that's ultimately it. I had a friend once tell me, because he had an estate he was managing, and the successors to the estate were constantly bombarding him with legal threats. And he told me, he said, I went and got my own attorney, and he drafted a $500 letter that said, if you don't stop sending my client these letters and stop harassing him, we will take legal action. Never heard from them again.
Right.
Was able to get his job done. He said, Bill, it was the best $500 I've ever spent. I want to address something someone in the audience said, because he will understand this in joke. And I like tipping my hat to the audience every now and again. EOTB, if that halfling comes within 10 feet of me, I'm going to melt his brain. He knows what I'm talking about. That goes back to when EOTB used to play D&D with us on Monday nights. But so, I hate to kind of, I guess, overthink things. I try to be kind of process thinking, like, let's concentrate on the next drive rather than next week's game. But what is the big what is over the horizon of this, Matt? What is the next thing in MYTHMERE's games? What have you got in your quiver? Or can you talk about it?
Osric is the next thing.
Okay, so it is Osric.
Yeah, Osric is right up. We're planning on doing that Kickstarter, you know, toward the end of this year, maybe in September. That'll depend a little bit on the shipping schedule for getting the books from this Kickstarter out to people, because it's not a good idea to launch a Kickstarter if you haven't finished delivering. So that'll affect the timing if there's a delay. But you know, Stuart has already written the first chapter, which I think is probably the most where the most changes will be in there, because that's where he's getting in the VTT stuff. So you know, and we've actually begun ordering some of the art for it, partly because we've got a double-barreled thing. We're releasing a slightly expanded white box, Swords and Wizardry white box, and you know, so with the new layout, and so for that we, you know, ordered some monster art, and we got some spells illustrations, and so those will be able to go to get used in the Osric book as well. And they're two different enough audiences that probably you won't have people being like, well, I've already seen every single one of these before. So you know, we've started ordering the artwork for Osric. So you know, Osric is a go, and so that is definitely the next thing. And then at the beginning of 2025, not 100% sure what the next thing will be at that point. We're working on a world, you know, a broader scope, something that's not Tome of Adventure design, but it's a little bit like that for designing worlds. And so that's one possibility. Other possibility might be if the domain of Herringard is popular as a mini campaign setting, that we do maybe the city of Herringard and the mega dungeon that's there. The mega dungeon is called the Uldra Cathan, because it's got the mega dungeon justification that I like is that there were these ancient civilizations and they used earth magic, and so in order to use earth magic, there are these nodes of earth magic, you know, down there, and so they would sort of mine for them, and they had to look, you know, you couldn't zero in on it, so you're doing all of this digging, and then when you do find them, you know, you've got to use the magic down there, and so this is the reason why you've got these massively expansive you know, mega dungeons down there. And then also it's got the idea that as you go deeper, so this is sort of a concept of planes that it's got in there, is that if you go deeper into the wilderness, you're going to start actually getting into an area where you might accidentally walk into a Fey realm by accident, and it just, reality slowly blurs away at the edges if you're heading into the wilderness in the Fey direction. You go down into the ground, it does that same thing. It's sort of beginning to blur away, and there it's into what I'm calling the Gloom Fey, as opposed to the Wild Fey of the Satyrs and the Dryads and so on in the surface area, that there is this chaotic and evil and destructive Fey force that's down under the ground. So you can begin, and that is the sort of you get into your Underdark sort of realm down there, but it's an actual planar transition, or, you know, patchy planes. And then the same thing in the sky, you know, it's just this idea that instead of really thinking about things as, you know, planets and universes and things, well, you can start on one world, go into the Fey realm or the underground realm, and end up crossing these planar borders, end up in some completely different material plane world out there, and that the connection between two different worlds may actually be closer via these other planes than it would be if you were traveling, you know, through space or whatever it would. So that's kind of the thing. That's a way longer answer than you were looking for. But
no, that is fascinating, and I like the idea of going deep underground, so deep that you come out in another plane.
And it also supports the sort of mythic underworld thing, which is something that an awful lot of people, I think, in the OSR have adopted, is this idea that the dungeon is kind of smart and kind of malign, and it has almost a life of its own. And in this case, in this mega dungeon, the Ultra Chthon, it really is malign, because way down deeper, the deeper you go, it's actually connecting up to the evil Fey realms that are down there, and it has literally a manifestation. And it's not like it's slamming doors behind you, kind of thing, but it's there and it's a presence. And that the one little segment of the mega dungeon that we're putting into the Domain of Herringard book is a section that sort of highlights that, because it's I don't want to give too much away, but something has happened there that kind of accentuates the power that's normally drawn from way deep down, and it's up closer to the surface. And someone was looking into it, and something bad happened, and you're now coming in and discovering, the aftermath of what happened there. So that's the quick look into that adventure.
I love it, man. I absolutely love that kind of thing. I mean, I'm just going to say that, like, my mega dungeon will never get published. So I'm comfortable in letting this little detail slip, but underground oceans is my jam, right?
Oh yeah.
I love when you get to the bottom, underground sea. I remember staying up till like well after midnight at the tender age of 7 or 8 to watch the George Powell Journey to the Center of the Earth. Mm-hmm. And when they get to the bottom level and there was that underground ocean, I was like, that is so badass, man.
The sunless sea, in Xanadu and Kubla Khan, a stately pleasure dome decree where Alf, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man down to a sunless sea. And there's the sunless sea right there in the Drow modules.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
you can tell why I memorized that poem, because it cuts off right when you get to the part that Gary Gygax used, and then I don't remember any of the rest of the poem after that.
Hell yeah. So I had of course you got to make the thing like horrifyingly deep, right? You got to make it like horrifyingly deep. So at the bottom, at the uttermost depths of the underground sea that I had in my mega dungeon was yet another abyssal trench, but that opened into one of the oceans of hell.
But there you go. I mean, that's the same exact concept. Going underwater would get you through to not the elemental plane of water. It's going to get you just somewhere else that you really don't want to be, down in the bottom of the ocean. Yeah. It's the same thing with the earth and so on.
Exactly. So
all right, hey, Bill, I've been drinking tea. Tea is something that makes you need to go pee. I suggest that you and I and the entire audience take a real quick 5-minute bathroom break while I turn off my phone and alert. So.
All right. Go ahead and take your break. I will take any comments from the audience, and we'll catch you.
Build up some good questions. I'll be right back.
We will. Lesha, thank you for hanging out with us. But anyway, yeah, guys, Matt will be back in a second. So if you want to pile on the questions, please do so. We're kind of in an intermission here. Feel free to throw any super chats, anything like that. I do appreciate what you guys have done so far. In fact, we're going to do a quick super chat thanks while Matt's away, and say thank you to Jeremy Rule for becoming a channel member. Thank you very much, my brother. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Michael Dale, for the $10. That is always appreciated. Jeremy Rule throwing a very obscure joke there for the $5. Appreciate that. You had to be there, guys. You had to be there. And Vaughn with the who is is it Andrew Jackson on the $2 bill? So thank you very much. I do appreciate that. That is really, really awesome. And very, very cool of you guys to send those that way. What all reveal classes are there? Okay, so Pellucidar. Oh, I'm glad you asked that. It is an Edgar Rice Burroughs. It is a series of Edgar Rice Burroughs books. At the Earth's Core is one of them, but it deals with adventurers exploring a hollow Earth like 1920s era explorers exploring a hollow earth that's filled with dinosaurs and primitives and all sorts of stuff. Do recommend. Thank you, Meteor Key Press. Again, Matt is going to be back. We're not calling it quits. Bob Matz actually has said he doesn't really want to discuss that. But I appreciate you asking. Alicia, yes, I will ask Matt about ancestry over races. In fact, I'm going to mark that. Thank you, Chet. Yeah, it is a good show. Engine Joe says it's a God show. Well, hopefully that's a good thing. Why would anyone trust WotC anymore? I certainly don't, Michael. They hate me. I don't like them. So, but anyway, yeah, I don't know if Matt's coming back or not. So, oh, hey, Matt, how are you doing?
No, I'm not coming back.
We did get a couple of questions. So one that I'm going to address right now off the bat, it just popped in, but I know the answer to this, and I like showing off my big trivia brain. What is the order of the term splatbook? Was it? So here's the thing. Supplement or module was typically the term used until the 1990s. Who's what's it? White Wolf released Vampire the Masquerade, and they started releasing ancillary core books that would have a line referring to something, and there'd be an asterisk, and you'd read down at the bottom of the page, see Seattle by Night source book, see Toronto by Night, see Werewolf the Apocalypse. And so people tended to say it looks like a little bug got splatted on the page. So that was the term that it caught on at White Wolf, and White Wolf started referring to books that were not core and not required, but were referenced in those with the asterisks on paragraphs or entries as splat books. So there you go, Engine Joe, and I hope that helps you out. But anyway, let's see. Well, let's get right into it, Matt. Let's start off the second half with this one. Can I ask you about ancestry over races? Yeah, what's up with that, Matt?
Sure. Well, I mean, it goes back to what I was talking about right at the very beginning about not doing things that are going to trip up the younger generation when they are looking through the books. The use of the term race has changed over time. Everybody, Bill's age and mine, remembers that it was very common usage to talk about the human race, it was not talking about, or rather, I mean, obviously it was talking about, people's skin color, but there was an entirely second use of the term. And so, those of our age don't have, any sort of speed bump when we run across the word race. But I think that it is now, very much come to mean, races of humanity. And it's just not, the perfect term for it in this would be species, but species sounds modern and science fiction-y and doesn't work particularly well, in the fantasy setting. And what you're really talking about there is, bloodline, ancestry, so on and so forth, because race is actually a very unspecific term. It's got two different meanings, both, and they're in dispute about, whether it's a useful scientific concept, blah, 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 blah. What you're really focusing on in the fantasy world is the ancestry or a bloodline. And out of the two of those, I preferred the term ancestry over bloodline, partly because you could have an ancestry that didn't have blood, like, a construct or something like that. So so that's the thing there, but it's really just an attempt not to, I'm not really a stick in the mud about terminology. My real key to terminology is, does it work well for the game, whether or not it's, authentic medieval or so on and so forth, is just not, it's got to work. But I'm not, historical accuracy is not my first question. My first question is this good for the game? Is this something that would turn off younger audiences? I'm pretty sure that it would. I mean, there have been a bunch of people who've complained, although I think it was really, they weren't so much complaining about the term, I think, as they were complaining about there's a negative implication if you're talking about half orc, half elf, so on and so forth. But so that's the reason that we decided to use ancestry rather than race.
Okay. I mean, I think that's a fair answer, Matt. I respectfully disagree with you. I mean, I'm not one of those guys that's going to, chase somebody around saying things that they find insensitive to own the libs or anything like that. But at the same time, I mean, I like to,
Well, look, here's one of the tests is if Gary had used the word ancestry rather than race, would you have objected to it? And I think the answer is absolutely not. So digging in on using the word race, I think it's irrelevant to the thing. Gary could have used the word if he'd picked out of his head, if he'd woken up on the different side of the bed that morning and decided that instead of using the word species, because I'm sure that was also Gary's probably first bet, and he also discarded it because he was a wordsmith.
May have been.
But if he'd picked ancestry over race, would anyone give a shit? No. So that, to me, if it passes that test, then I don't think it's any problem one way or the other.
Well, I guess what I'll say, and this will be the last that I'm going to bring it up, because I'm not arguing it at you. I'm just expressing an idea on it. I feel we have a perfectly serviceable term, and Gary didn't say ancestry. He did say race. And at this point if you were talking about 2014, 2013, 2010, I might be a little bit more malleable to it, but from a crowd that, Matt, historically, and you can look at other geek hobbies to see the evidence of this, doesn't spend money even when you bend stuff around for them. How many steps back am I supposed to take? And that's where I am, but I respect where you're coming from. And it's like we said earlier, I'm a guy who writes and gives away AD&D modules and goes, nah, Wizards of the Coast. You are a publisher, and you have a much greater stake in the game than I do.
Yeah, but I mean, even where we are, the concern is not outrage. The concern is, because we know, millennials and Gen Z speak an utterly different language than boomers and older Gen X. It's just there's entirely different linguistic contexts to what's said, right? I'm not concerned about the outrage. What I am concerned about is somebody who's a younger gamer who stumbles across the term race and thinks, oh, bah, I'm going to put this down right now. And that I don't want to have happen, because I really do want the younger generation to, play the more improvisational rules types of games. So, I mean, it is that I'm a publisher, but the concern is really about the fact that there are new generations out there, and they do speak and think differently than the older generations that are out there. And I want this to be accessible to the younger generations as well. So I'm going to try and avoid things that might just, create a technical foot fault that leads somebody not to want to play a game when it's a good game. So that, that's where the concern is. This is the broad, usability and inclusivity of it rather than the outrage.
Fair enough. And again, we've known each other long enough that I respect what you're saying. So I'm not gonna, anybody out there, don't, please, there's enough debate and angst in this world. Don't get hung up on it. I'm not, and Matt's clearly not. So, but let's see. Want to make sure again I'm not missing any questions. Oh yeah, so I have a question for you. Will you be folding the stuff you're doing now? Will that dovetail into, or by necessity does it not have to, in the software that you've been working on with Brave Alice, not Halfling, with Brave Alice?
Right. Will we be folding it? I mean, there's certainly the possibility that if we do something that drops easily into that software, that we will give it over to them to put into it. We're mainly a book publisher in terms of our skills, and so when there's something that's technological, whether it's VTTs or whether it's the fantasy adventure builder tables, to bring in somebody who can do that when there is a good dovetail. But what we're mainly focused on is just the core business of books and PDFs. So but like I said, 2025 is it's not 100% decided what the products are going to be. So we'll see where we get to.
Right on. Excellent. So I guess we come around to this. What is your convention schedule then like? Because you've got to launch this. This is did I lose my I did. Hang on a second here. See if we can bring this up. No, that's Knockspell. Dang it. What is the, let's see. There we go. That's it. Let me add that back to the screen. So this launches in when are we launching?
We're probably looking at the end of March.
Okay, so it's a little bit out. It's not like tomorrow.
You usually build up your pre-launch page for about 2 to 3 weeks is how long Kickstarter tells you to do it. You can do it too long and then people start getting bored. But we're targeting, we put up the pre-launch page based on the target of a launch right at the end of March. So June-ish or July-ish, hopefully we're delivering the books, and we're going to say that it's much later than that to give wiggle room. But you were asking about the convention schedule, and right at the moment, so we after we left Frog God, we pretty much didn't do very much in the way of conventions, just North Texas, because it's close to where we are. We could drive to Dallas from Houston.
Right.
And in terms of the other conventions, since we only had, we started with, started with no books, and then we had one book, Tome of Adventure Design. Now we've got two. Once we've got, at least 3 products to put on a table, that's when it starts making sense to go to conventions and get a booth, and do the convention thing. So I mean, we definitely slowed down an awful lot on conventions, and we're going to be looking to ramp up, next year. So, now the best way to do that is if I'm invited as a, special guest. So everyone in the audience should, get on the email with their favorite convention and tell them that they ought to invite me as a special guest, because then I get to go for free. So
well, hell, I know a convention. In fact,
go for the 2 people on the ticket thing and say Bill Sylvie and Matt Finch ought to be special guests.
And wherever it is, if you let me know tonight and I start walking, I might get there by the date of a summer convention.
And their plane fares should be paid for.
Yeah, just don't fly me Boeing. That's all I got. That's all I got to ask about that.
Yeah, this is weird. Why did they put Bill Sylvia on Boeing and Matt on a different airline?
Wow, I've got the whole front of the plane to myself. What is all this about? But yeah, I know a convention you can go to for free, Matt, if you'd like, and it's
right. Let's talk about that. This is the online convention.
That's right. The Great Underground Online Gaming Convention, guys. It's coming up. If for whatever reason you're addicted to Warhorn, get ready, because this is the last year I'm going to be using Warhorn. It's been onerous using Warhorn, but anyway. So first, let me put that link up, and then Matt and I will talk about this. Let's see. There we go. So for those of you in the audience who might not know, for coming up on 3 years running now here on the channel, I have been doing a virtual gaming convention, the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention, or as I call it, the GUAC. And yes, we have merch. This is not just a one-off. But the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention is a way for folks, maybe you can't make it to a con, maybe you can make it to a lot of cons and you want to cram another one in, but your travel time is limited and you're getting pulled different directions. Well, from the 24th to the 28th of April, we're doing it right here. Well, not right here on the live stream channel, but over on Discord. I'm going to have game rooms set up. You can go to the Warhorn link. You can sign up right now. It is free. It is 100% free. Now, if you want to buy chips and beer and chicken wings and a whole bunch of my merch and sit on your couch and to say you spent some money at a convention, you can certainly do that too. But it is open to folks from anywhere for virtually any type of game you want to run. We have got a whole library. We've got dice rollers on the Discord channel. We're going to have an artist alley. Matt, did you know that? We're going to have an artist alley. We've got Tracy Lesh and Richard Witters, both TSR alums. That's right. We'll be on Artist Alley. They might have merch, be doing sketches. We'll definitely be interviewing them. We'll have games. I'll be running games. There's already some games in there. My buddy Doomsword, you guys know Doomsword? He's running AD&D Tomb of Horrors on Sunday. So Sunday.
Can people watch?
Now that is up to individual game masters as to whether or not they want people to spectate. But once you get on the Discord, look for somebody who's got a game up, and just PM them on Discord and say, hey, may I please sit and spectate? Mute your mic, be polite, mute your mic, and just hang out and watch or listen to people play. But you can also play, because there's going to be plenty of games. It's a virtual gaming space, so I can make as many rooms as you guys need to game in. And Matt, does that something that interests you?
Yeah, well, I mean, like we were talking about, the sponsorship thing. What if now that part of the difficulty of this is that the Kickstarter might or might not just have ended at that point. And when a Kickstarter ends, I go to sleep for like 3 days out of exhaustion. The whole thing. And literally this is, right about when it would be ending. But so I'm not going to offer to run games, although I will offer to be in a chat room, and talk to people and answer questions and but also, so why don't we do like a free PDF, maybe like a 2-page, 2 monsters per page PDF of monsters from the monster book that we're doing, so that people can get it'll sort of be an early view of it, because people won't have seen it yet, except that, like I said, the Kickstarter may actually be over at that point. But to all of the we'll give it not just to the DMs but to everybody, a little PDF with a couple monsters in it.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Matt. So there we go. MYTHMERE Games throwing in in to support the convention. You guys heard it there. If that's not reason enough, then I don't know how I can properly motivate you. But MYTHMERE Games right there. We have a sponsor. So you can get a little.
Well, we'll also do a financial sponsorship too, but we'll talk about that offline at the end of it. But we'll throw you some cash, because.
Sure thing, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I think you should get cash for running a convention.
I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. Now, I have said before, Matt, and I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but if this channel ever hits 10,000 subs on YouTube, because I don't think it's going to be a win, but if it ever hits 10,000 subs on YouTube, I will arrange an IRL con. I'll still call it the GUAC, the Great Underground Overland Gaming Convention, here, and I'll figure out what to do, and how to go $32,000 in the hole and play D&D while doing it. But that is a long way off. I have been sitting in the mid 5,500s for a while now, so I'm not worried about waking up tomorrow and seeing I have 10,000 subscribers. But for now, that is what we do. I'm going to be running Matt. I'm going to be running Space Hulk. I'm going to be running Dungeon. I'm going to be running Hero Quest, and I might even run some role-playing game stuff. So if any of that interests any of you guys, please absolutely sign up for the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention, April 24th to April 28th. We're doing it in 4-hour blocks. So you can go in, hey, if you walk in and you game for 25 minutes and you TPK everyone, good for you. But you have that whole 4-hour slot for yourself, and have you can have a lot of fun.
Now we've got 57 people watching this right now. No, 54 right now watching this. Which you got to be marching up toward. That's a good audience, just from my days, running YouTube channel.
Oh yeah. I mean,
it's a live audience.
I tell you what, the live audience, they're great, and I think folks do come back, like from the Discord and from Twitter, they come back and watch the live streams. But I mean, as far as content, tabletop RPG content on YouTube, if you're not really talking about modern AD&D, it's like, hey, here's Keep on the Borderlands. We know Keep on the. Thank you, Bill. So it's like, so it is the I call them interstitial videos, like 8 or 9 minutes long. I lose my shit about something stupid that Wizards of the Coast has done, and I get 5,000 views on it, right? And I pick up a couple hundred subs. But Wizards of the Coast is now so infrequently doing stupid things that are noteworthy that it's mostly just the chill crowd that I have in my live streams. And I love them. I absolutely love them. The live streams and the stuff that I do.
Now you have a really, really active chat room in this, which is great. And, fun people.
I do. I like to say that I have the best first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons live stream 5-night-a-week show anywhere on YouTube. And I will
be over specific.
Die on that hill. But I also have an absolutely wonderful audience, dude. These guys out here are amazing, and I know they know because they made it happen. But I don't know if I told you this time last year, this time last year minus 2 weeks, this whole group of lunatics you see scrolling in the chat all just pitched in and sent me to GaryCon. Me and my wife for like a week stay in Lake Geneva at GaryCon. Flight was covered, hotel was covered. We did meals and Uber and our passes for GaryCon. But I have an amazing audience, is what I'm saying, Matt. Good. So you are seeing the best of the Delver's Dungeon over there in that chat, and I appreciate everything that you guys do. Well, so
you definitely deserve a good audience too, because this, what you put into it is really worth it.
I try. But so I'm going to put you on the spot though. So you want to do like I don't know, like have a table, as it were, at the GUAC. Let's just maybe come back and shoot the breeze, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, no, it's a lot better if if I can talk to people rather than trying to run a game or something like that. Because like I said, if this Kickstarter has just ended, I am fried when this thing goes on.
I feel you.
Yeah. So I'll definitely, absolutely, I'll be there, in a chat room and talk to anybody and so on. But I don't want to be, performing on a spot kind of thing. So.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. And Wheeling Dragon's making me blush over here. What is it? I helped you get your confidence to be a DM. Nonsense. It was in you all along. The power was within you all along. Thank you very much, Wheeling Dragon. But oh, I lost the link there. Let me see. So anyway, I am looking forward to seeing you in whatever capacity at the GUAC. And yeah, if you want to hang out and just listen to games, I am entirely certain nobody's gonna say no to the great Matt Finch. Certainly
Well,
not.
if it's on a Discord, we can just get a chat room, however you're connecting these things up, and I'll just talk to people, answer questions.
Sure, absolutely. We will do that. We'll do that on the Discord rather than with the visual stuff that Tracy and Richard. Well, I don't know. I'll talk to them about doing it on Discord also. But we'll sort it out. We'll definitely sort it out. Is there anything at all, man, oh, you know what? I'm going to ask you this because we kind of touched on this a little bit with, race versus ancestry. What do you like? So I feel like I could go down a real Alex Jones rabbit hole here with and just be like, Matt Wizards of the Coast is putting something in 5th edition to make the characters hobbits. I could. But I don't want to, but it's like, it's so dangerously close to that razor's edge when you discuss some of the disgusting things the Wizards of the Coast gets up to now. And of course, people say, look, man, that's just the internet. Just take a step back. It really isn't, in my opinion, Matt. It is absolutely cultural vandalism. It is, it's taking a sledgehammer to sculpture, in my opinion, because you don't like the fact that the David is nude. But the latest thing from Wizards of the Coast is we could never publish OD&D because the word fighting man is in it, and of course it was written by 2 old white cis males. This is not like, so I heard somebody said that. No, I've heard that said. That is in a video that Wizards of the Coast put out in the year of the 50th anniversary of the release of Dungeons and Dragons. That was their take. That was their take. We have literally, in our generation, Matt, we have seen the birth of a type of game that simply did not exist. And over the course of thousands of years of human history. And that was their take. And I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, well, maybe the OGL, we kind of changed that. Or, maybe we put a disclaimer in the front of some classic D&D books saying, they should have done better. This is like one toke over the line, man. This is, I'm trying to say as little about it as possible, or I will start ranting. But do you know what I'm talking about and what?
Yeah, but so here's the thing. Again, this is the streamer versus the publisher, because I don't care what Wizards of the Coast thinks. They've got a new version of a game. If what you're working on is publishing, and the OSR is almost exclusively a DIY movement. I mean, there are publishers like me, but I'm still itsy bitsy. It's just me and Susie, tiny compared to the larger ones. It doesn't. When you're talking about the OSR type of game, even the expansive definition, like the one that I've got, that would include Shadowdark and so on, it doesn't matter what Wizards says or thinks or does. What matters is the fans who are writing a cool new resource or simply using a resource. It's the communication among the fans at places like the chat room, here and now, right at this moment, the the Discord, the MYTHMERE Games Discord, people getting in touch and talking. What's important is the fan community and the fan communication, the gamers getting together and playing, the stories that people tell. Oh, the OSR and Reddit's another good one. All of these places, and it was easier when we had Google Plus out there to link all of these communities. And it's become more difficult, and the community has become more fragmented because the social media sites have themselves become fragmented, and there's less interlinkage between them. But that's what's important, is the fan community. It's the the conventions, so on and so forth. What Wizards has to say about something is it may be loud, but it is not relevant.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that on the face of it, I absolutely agree with you. And leave it to OTB to hit something that is it is salient to this and is relevant to this. And Matt, I promise I'm not just being a contrarian trying to push back on you or what EOTB has said, because I want what you're saying to be true. And in 2015, 2016, it was, but I was telling people back then, guys, they're going to come for us next. They're burning their way through comic books. Tabletop RPGs is on their target list, and we've seen it. We've seen it coming, Matt, and it's here now, and it's coming out of Wizards of the Coast mouth. Where the problem comes in is I never, ever, ever want Dungeons and Dragons, the Dungeons and Dragons I play, to lose the Gygax Arneson connections and the Alan Hammett connection and the Mike Carr connection and the Errol Otis connection and just so on down the line. I never want that association to go away.
But it's going to. Because you're talking about a publicly traded corporation, so your option is not to look at Wizards of the Coast to protect our hobby. And if you do, then you're giving it up. What you have to do is look for a way forward to preserve the Errol Otis art, to preserve the Arneson connection, to preserve the debate about, was it Dave or was it Gary that really invented D&D? All of that stuff is up to us to protect. That's why in 2005 we wrote Osric. It's why Labyrinth Lord got written. It's why Swords and Wizardry got written, is because we have to preserve whatever aspect of the game it is that that you enjoy. And there's plenty of disagreement among grognards, and there's the whole political spectrum and all of that. But lump all of that together, because I think people, whether you're on the whether you're leftward like me or rightward or whatever it might be, we can join together at least on the goal of saying, let's preserve the legacy of this game. A publicly traded corporation has to follow profit, and the world is changing. And what the result of that is going to be is that they are slowly but surely going to file off all of the serial numbers. They're going to file off, all of the stuff that makes it, really unique. And they'll do it with each and every edition. They'll downplay whatever the last edition was just as hard as they're going to downplay OD&D, because they've got a new edition to sell, and they're a corporation and they have to sell it. It's up to us to figure out what it is, and you by creating your YouTube channel, me by working on the Osric and Swords and Wizardry. It's up to us to do it. It's not going to happen because of Wizards of the Coast. It won't. They're not going to, corporations do not preserve history. That's what museums do. It's not what corporations do.
And I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you, Matt. But here's the point of departure. For me, anyway, the issue comes, Matt. not that they've done it or that they're going to do it, but they've done it in such a sinister way. They haven't just poisoned, or they haven't just excavated it and thrown it out of their own yard. With statements like what they've made and statements they continue to make, about the problematic past and everything. It's not saying what we have is unworthy of D&D. It is the driving in the wedge of guilt by association. It is the unspoken, Matt, that worries me. You talk about taking it to people, and saying, okay, we play like this. And this goes back to what I was saying about, ancestry instead of race. The implication has come, and I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, Matt. What has happened over the last year, and that there's still aftershocks happening, and there may be another major quake coming, as you mentioned earlier, with them putting on the face of it, not, having done it once, they can do it again. That didn't start just with the OGL. Matt, that started with a hit piece on PBS NewsHour about how people who played old D&D and resist switching, they're probably racist, It was an hour of government-funded television about how I'm a bad person, Matt. And when Wizards of the Coast picks up that football and runs with it, it doesn't matter if I'm playing AD&D or OD&D or Swords and Wizardry or Osric. I've now got that stink on me. And the people we want to reach by saying Ancestry now are like, ew, I don't know. Wizards said you guys were gross and inappropriate. And so it doesn't.
I'll tell you when that will change. Each and every new edition, whenever Wizards comes out with a new edition, the entire fan base stops, thinks about what they're doing, and some of them will go on to the next edition. Some of them will keep playing the edition that they're playing. Some of them will go back to either first edition or OD&D. There's a stochastic point at which people suddenly stop and evaluate whatever it is that Wizards of the Coast has been saying through the course of the last edition. I hear what you're saying. It sucks to have, the lead company in the thing, painting with a broad brush stroke, everyone who's playing, the old style of games. But the reason that it's done is that they want people to buy the new edition.
Well, and I mean, I guess you have to appreciate the evil of it, though, don't you? I mean, when TSR wanted you to play second edition, they just said, "Well, it's better," and that's a subjective.
And I swallowed that hook, line, and sinker. And then when they came out with third edition, I swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. And it wasn't until we'd been playing third edition for a couple of years, and somebody tried to jump on the back of a dire lion to hit an airborne wraith because they didn't have the flyability, and my group suddenly bogged down in the question of what's the exact number that you would need to jump onto the back of a dire lion to attack a wraith that's airborne, that I suddenly realized for the first time, and this was like 2004, that system matters. I mean, I am not a prodigy, who understood everything long ahead of time. I really didn't get how much system mattered until the year 2004. So, I forgot where I was going with that because I was just so remembering. I was saying, what's wrong with you people that you're looking in books to just roll a number to jump up on the back of the die line? It was all of a sudden first edition raised its head and solved the question for me. And I saw everything in a whole new light of, what, in first edition, all I would have done was roll one die for this. But,
Well, and you know, I think where we're talking about is edition grind. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Matt. Maybe I'm just too emotionally close to it that I don't see it as mere corporate maneuvering. But again, you know, play AD&D because it's better than OD&D. It's better organized than OD&D. Play second edition because it's better organized than AD&D. Play third edition because it completely fixes what was wrong with AD&D. Play fourth edition because finally we're using a grid and board game type system like D&D should have been played. You know, play fifth edition because we're really sorry we insulted you with fourth edition. But this is a horrifying brand new weapon, and I guess I shouldn't be too surprised that it's now play sixth edition because people that want you to play old editions are racists. Come on, Matt. You can't tell me that's not pretty fucking terrifying.
No, I mean it is, but it's also exactly par for the course. Like, you know, you just listed this, you know, the strategies, you know, with each of the editions all the way back. It's just more of the same. But really, what my point though is that, you know, no one is going to protect the game and the style of game, you know, for us. A corporation is not going to do it, and until it's in the public domain, it's there's going to be maneuvering, you know, that we have to do with, you know, with Retroclones or, you know, OGLs and so on and so forth. Until it's in the public domain, in order to protect it, you know, we've got to do it. However, you know, whatever somebody's, you know, skill set is, even if it's just, you know, making an interesting comment on, you know, a website somewhere, as opposed to, you know, an asshole comment, you know, just trying to, you know, build up the thing. It's up to us to protect the hobby, and that, you know, that's why Osric, that's why Labyrinth Lord, that's why Swords and Wizardry, that's why I've forgotten the name of the next Retroclone that I was going to list, but, you know, that we've got to do it. Is not going to be done for us. Is there sinister shit out there, you know, in corporations? I used to be a corporate lawyer. This, you know, I don't know if I just got a much thicker skin as a result of that, but it was like, you know, Eye of the Beholder said when he talked about the, you know, here is your 30-day notice. You know, when Stuart and I came out with Osric, you know, we got, you know, flame war, you know, out there from people who now understand what Osric was all about, and that it was to protect AD&D, you know, rather than to take credit for it. But, you know, there were a whole lot of people who were really, really, you know, got their panties in a wad about Osric. And, you know, what happens, you know, it's up to us to protect the hobby. It's not something that where you can expect with the Wizards of the Coast, you know, is going to show due deference to people who no longer have anything to do with actually getting out there and selling their product.
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, if I've been unclear, I apologize. To be clear, I'm not asking the question and lamenting. What do you mean? Why won't Wizards take care of us and say nice things about us? I've known since 2000 they weren't our friends. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, they came in, and I remember it was like summer of 2000. My wife came in and was like, "Oh, hey, you got to put on the radio, hon. They're talking to the people who are making the new D&D," and it was Ryan Dancy, and I heard him talking about how 3E was built mechanically. I don't mean the mechanics of 3E. I mean how 3E was built as a machine. 3E is a machine that only functions one way, and that is optimally. 3E is just about optimal. And when I sat there and listened to him, because I was on the bubble about should I give third edition a try, and I did end up playing a lot of third edition, but I just remember sitting there listening to the interview and thinking, this guy doesn't have the faintest clue about how AD&D works. He has memories of how he thought AD&D worked. and why AD&D was broken. But he doesn't have. I don't think this Ryan Dancy cat has cracked a rule book in a long time. And then he and I talked on the internet, and he proved it. But from then, you know, you had 4th edition come in, and all the shenanigans that went on with them taking down all the PDFs and shutting it down, trying to shut down the OGL, you know, saying there's not going to be for a third party. And now, you know, after they spent a few years with 5e apologizing. So I've never fallen under the illusion that these are awesome people who've only turned on us in the last few weeks. Please don't misunderstand me. Don't misunderstand me.
Yeah, fair. And, you know, you've been a skeptic, you know, ever since, you know, day one. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't feel like this is like some new shocking thing. But it does fill me with despair because I love this and I want to go to a comic shop and put this out on a table and people not go, first of all, yikes. Rather, I want them to sit down and go, oh, that's on Stranger Things. Awesome. Is that what we're going to play?
Well, that's...
And I literally have the corporate Death Star of Wizards of the Coast trying to make the former happen. Do you understand the despair that fills me with?
Yeah, I do.
But I appreciate what you're saying, and I get what you're saying, and I think you and EOTB both talking about, you know, the way forward being swords and wizardry, and Ozric, and indeed Labyrinth Lord, and other thing, and of course Jeff Talanian's awesome work.
Hyperborea,
Hyperborea, yeah.
I'm not sure if they've dropped the Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, because I've noticed
they have
branded more as just Hyperborea. But yeah, if anyone hasn't checked that out, highly recommended.
Yes, the first time I had Jeff on as a guest, I tried to stumble through Astonishing Swords, and so he said, "It's just Hyperborea now, Bill. You can just say Hyperborea." So it's like, oh, thank God.
That's Bill's attempt at Jeff Talanian's New York accent.
Yeah, and it fails utterly. So please don't tell him I did that. But anyway, but I know we're not going to solve anything, you and I, on this. I look at it, and I think a large part of what they're doing is what I'm feeling now, but then I shake it off. It's demoralization, you know. Yeah. It's like,
yeah, you just don't let it get to you, you know. And it's not like, you know, this is, yeah.
I just, it's something I struggle with, and I thank you for your insight, and it does shine some more sunlight on it in a very positive way, and I because I know we kind of get into, we talk about that. People ask me, hey, are you going to do a video about this? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do an interstitial because I'll start screaming. And my audience likes rants, but I don't think they've ever seen me just get full on incoherent. Although I am going to do a 24-hour live stream one day, and they'll get to see it then, but for a different reason.
I did run a 12-hour long session of games at North Texas once. It was because they changed my son's graduation date from high school because the Houston's basketball team made it into the finals, and that shifted around the stadium availability. And so suddenly they had to change the date of graduation. So it suddenly moved on top of the second half of North Texas. And so I was like, well, I said I was going to run, you know, 4-hour sessions of the game. We're just going to go for one 16-hour session.
Oh, damn, dude.
I made it 12 hours before my voice gave out. But
I did for the first anniversary of the show, I did 12 hours, and that was pretty rough. And then I said, okay, next year, guys, if I make it to year 2, if I'm not burned out by year 2, and well, you know, I'm still here going into year 4. But I said, if I make it to year 2, I'll do 24 hours. Well, right when I would have done a second year anniversary was when GaryCon was. And of course that was last year. And, you know, they sent us to GaryCon. And then when I got home, I was like, okay, I'll do it when I get home. That'll be fun after, powering through the con. Then I got COVID. And if I had stayed up for 24 hours with COVID, I would have, what do you call it? Died.
Yeah.
So they didn't get a 24-hour last year. They may get one this year. I'm not promising anything to anyone. But if you want to tune in the last couple of hours just to see what a completely decerebrated person looks like on stream, your chance may be coming up later this spring.
And you can see that quicker and more conveniently too, because if it turns out that the online convention is actually like the day after our Kickstarter ends, then come and see me in the chat room, and you'll see a decerebrated person there too.
There we go. Yes. So that can happen. But speaking of decerebrated and getting tired, we're going on hour 3 now. It is 2 hours and 10 minutes.
We're past the second hour, so I say that we wrap it up, and then I go eat some dinner because it's getting late here, and I didn't eat beforehand because I get sleepy when I eat.
Right. So your body is basically starting to process its own sugars at this point. So Matt, you are an awesome person. You are a good friend. And my only regrets about doing this is that you cannot be sitting right here next to me, buddy. But we
should get together at some convention. Next time we dovetail at a convention, we do something where we're actually
unquestionably. Yeah. First beer is on me.
Okay.
That is a promise. First beer is on me. But I want to thank you so much for being here. Everybody bookmark that Kickstarter. That thing is going here in just a few weeks. I'm going to put that link up one more time in the chat. You have no excuse to not jump on this, fiscal responsibilities aside. As for myself, I'll be back tomorrow night. We're going to be playing some Gamma World. Man, you ought to watch the Gamma World games. They're fun and funny. But we'll do that. And then next week, our Thursday guest next week is going to be Jack Photon, who does some amazing handmade book work. I gotta send you some pictures of some of the books that Jack has made. He's made like his own custom AD&D hardbacks. They're crazy. I'll show you some of them, Matt. But anyway, thank you everyone. Just real quick on the supers again. Jeremy, thank you for subscribing. Michael Dale, thank you for the super. Jeremy, thank you for the super. Vaughn, thank you for the super. And that's gonna do it. I'm gonna get out of here, Matt. Go eat some dinner, damn it.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for having me on your show and Bill's show.
Damn right. All right, guys, I'm going to get on out of here. I appreciate it all, everyone. Love every single one of you. Thanks for hanging out tonight. And please do keep your eyes and ears peeled. You know why. Lurking out there are the deadly owl bears. Peace.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to